Before we look at the relationships, quick definitions on some of the concepts that that are involved in this. What is a database? The database is a broad term for storage of organized data and information, which in your case is your Business Central environment, right? Which is a collection of all the Business Central tables. Then, as mentioned, a database consists of many tables. Tables is a display of information in a tabular form with rows and columns in the table. Each table will consist of multiple records, which is a set of data that is stored in the table. The table consists of multiple fields. The fields is determining the data structure for a single piece of data in the records in the tables. And a crucial thing with the concept of the relationships are the keys of the table. And a key is an attribute or a field, or sometimes a group of fields that uniquely identifies each record in the table. So with regard to Business Central, one of the tables that is used in every Business Central environment is your customer table. So that's the table concept of this piece is the customer table in general. Each record is, or an example of a record here would be customer number 20,000 at the bank with its address and all the other table fields, the properties of one of the records. The record consists, as mentioned, of multiple fields. So one of the fields, for instance, holds the address information, and the key of your table, customer table, is the customer number. So tying the Business Central back to those definitions that we just saw. Now, relationships in Power BI. With regard to relationships, we have 3 different relationships that we see in Power BI. The first one is the one-to-one relationship. So when you have multiple tables and they connect with a one-to-one relationship, that means that one record in a table is associated with one and only one record in another table. So in this example here, for instance, when you have a school and you have a table of schools and a table of head teachers, each school will have only one head teacher, and one head teacher is tied to one school only, hence the one-to-one relationship. Well, the next one is a one-to-many relationship. So one record in a table can be associated with one or more records in another table. So for instance, your teacher, right? Each school will have multiple teachers, so hence the one-to-many relationship. Many-to-many means that multiple records in a table are associated with multiple records in another table. So in this example, you would have a table of students and a table of lessons. One student will be involved in multiple lessons, and one lesson will have multiple pupils, multiple students. Hence the many-to-many relationship. Back to this, why do we use school and teachers and students as an example, whereas no Business Central environment will ever have these kind of relationships, right? A Business Central, all the Business Central tables that you will be working with will always have a one-to-many relationship. We don't see one-to-one relationships in Business Central, and we definitely don't see many-to-many relationships in Business Central. We'll have the concept. I'll go into a little deeper in an example I'll be showing further on. But if you look at the table relationships directly in BC, all we ever see is a one-to-many relationship. So why do you need to know that? It's because of also this. We're going to show this in Power BI, but I just wanted to show you real quick why we talk about this. When you define relationships in Power BI, you have to fill in the cardinality of the table. So in this case, I'm tying the customer table in Power BI with the customer ledger entries. I'm using the customer number is the link between the two tables. And from this direction, customer to customer ledger entry, it's a one-to-many relationship that needs to be filled out for each of the tables if we connect Business Central tables together in Power BI. So That's why it's important, but that's why I used the school as an example for the different types. So here's the type that we will be using for all our Business Central tables and data, is to visualize a little bit of what we're seeing. We have a table with all the customers. One of the customers is customer number 123. That the link between the customer ledger entries is between that customer number, all your invoices, your payments, your credit memos, and that's the one-to-many relationship that we have between the customer and the customer ledger entries. The relationships in Power BI that we're going to look at, if we see that in a graph form, and we put that customer table as a central table that is tying a couple of other tables together. The customer ledger, the customer table is tied to your customer ledger entry. Using that customer number, which is in both tables, and that's where you'll see also. I'm going to show that in Power BI as well. This one-to-many relationship, right? You have one customer that has many customer ledger entries. Hence, this one-to-many relationship between the customer and the customer ledger entries. Similar to the users, right? Every customer ledger entry is posted by a user. The system will capture the user ID, and that tracks it back to the user table if you want to pull in the name, full name, and the phone number or something of that user. And then it's a many to one. So the same concept, just the other way around, right? It's many customer ledger entries are tied to one user in this case. Same kind of thing with salespeople. Every customer is, or potentially every customer is tied to a single salesperson, but one salesperson can have multiple customers, one to many. Now here's the next one is that concept of many to many. So one salesperson could be in multiple teams in Business Central. It's a feature, it's not used a lot, so I won't spend too much time on it, but one team can have multiple salespeople in it. So from a concept perspective, that would be a many-to-many relationship, but you won't see that in the table structure in Business Central because Business Central added an additional table between the two where it's capturing individual teams with the multiple salespeople. So they do that in a different way to make sure that when you would be using it in Power BI, you would have a better way of tying those tables together. But just the concept of that would be a many-to-many table in this case. So, okay, so let's go dive into Business Central and into Power BI and show you that example of how we use that in the relationships in Power BI. So, when you're in Power BI, you see in the far left the model view option, which shows you in a similar way as what I just showed you in that PowerPoint slide of how tables are tied together, right? Now you see here an item ledger entry table, which is, call it an orphan table because it's not tied to anything else. Click on the manage relationships here, and you can add a new table relationship, right? So now I'm gonna add. Let's start with item ledger entries. So I got my item ledger entries table. I want to pull in the full name of the customer, for instance, or other information that I need to link back from the customer table to my item ledger entries. So I selected the two tables. I'm looking for the customer number. So in the item ledger entry table, source number is a relationship between the customer and the item ledger entries. Here I'm using on the customers, it's the number that is tying these two together. And most of the time, Power BI will recognize the relationship, right? So the cardinality has already automatically been defined as many to one in that relationship, where it has many item ledger entries to one customer. So also make sure that this is going the right way, right? Many to one, from the top to the next one, many to one. If the tables will be the other way around, it's one to many. So just click on OK, and the system will has updated your relationships. And now we can use that so that's the example that I put in here, is using, for instance, let me show you here you already got that. So this is, for instance, the list of all my customers. I'm using the salesperson code as an example. So back to the example in the schema I showed you previously, because this is a report and I had defined. I not only want to show the salesperson code, but the full name of my salesperson. So that's why I had to link the two tables together. And now I'm able to show a graph, for instance, with the full name of the salesperson and how many customers they have for each salesperson. So that's why those relationships are important to be used and to set up.